Your brain cannot tell the difference between free and later. To the part of your mind that controls spending, money you will pay in 3 weeks barely registers as money at all. Researchers at one of the top business schools in the country proved it with a simple auction, and the people paying by card were willing to spend up to twice as much for the very same thing. The tickets were identical, and so was the room. The only thing that changed was how they paid. That gap is where debt lives, and today we close it. That study was real, and it is worth sitting with for a second. At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 2 researchers named Drazen Prelek and Duncan Simister ran an auction for tickets to a sold-out professional basketball game. Everyone in the room wanted the tickets. Everyone had money. The researchers split them at random into 2 groups. One group was told the winner would pay in cash. The other group was told the winner would pay by credit card. Nothing else was different. Same tickets, same game, same crowd of eager bidders. And the credit card group bid so much higher that, on average, they were willing to pay close to double what the cash group offered for the exact same seats. Read that again slowly. Not a slightly nicer product, not a better deal. The same tickets, bought by the same kind of person, cost almost twice as much the moment a card entered the picture. The researchers gave that effect a name. They called it the coupling problem, and once you understand it, you will never look at your own spending the same way. Here is what is actually happening inside your head. When you hand over cash, 2 things fire at the same moment. You get the thing you want, and you feel the money leave. Those 2 events are coupled together. Your brain registers a small, real sting of loss, and that sting is not a flaw in the system, it is the brake. Neuroeconomics researchers have watched this happen using brain imaging scans, and when a price feels too high, a region called the insula lights up. The insula is the same part of your brain involved in processing physical pain and disgust. Spending money you can feel is, in a small and literal way, supposed to hurt a little. That tiny ache is the thing that stops you from buying the 4th pair of shoes you do not need. Now watch what a credit card does to that system. You get the thing you want today. You feel great today. And the pain, the part that is supposed to protect you, gets shipped off to a statement that arrives weeks later, buried under a dozen other charges you already forgot about. The reward is loud and immediate. The cost is quiet and delayed. Your brain, which evolved long before plastic and taps and instant online checkout, treats that delayed cost as if it barely exists. Researchers call this the pain of paying, and the entire modern debt economy is built on quietly switching it off. So no, your brain does not sit there thinking debt is dangerous. Left alone, your brain treats borrowed money as close to free, because free is exactly what it feels like in the only moment your brain is actually paying attention. The feeling in the store is real. The bill is abstract. And human beings are wired to trust the feeling in front of them over the number they cannot see yet. Let me show you how big this actually is, because this is not a small group of people with a shopping problem. According to the most recent Federal Reserve data, Americans now owe $1.28 trillion on credit cards. That is the highest total ever recorded, and it keeps climbing. The average interest rate on balances that carry from month to month sits at around 22%, which is near the highest it has been in the entire history of the tracking. This is not the 16% your parents complained about. Money left sitting on a card today grows faster than almost anything you could realistically invest it in, except it grows against you instead of for you. And here is the quiet part underneath the number. Most of the people carrying that debt never sat down one afternoon and decided to borrow thousands of dollars at 22%. Nobody chooses that on purpose. It arrives the way almost all of it arrives, one painless tap at a time. Each single tap feeling free in the moment, until the taps quietly add up into a total that makes your stomach drop when the statement finally loads. Let me tell you about a man I will call Warren, because his story is the story of almost everyone who ends up in this hole. Warren was not reckless. He had a decent job, and he told himself he paid attention to money. It started with a dinner he put on the card because his account was a little thin that week, and he figured he would clear it next month. Then, a car repair he did not see coming. Then a flight for a wedding he could not skip. None of it felt like debt. Each charge felt like a normal Tuesday. He was still tapping the same way he always had, still walking out feeling like nothing had happened, and the whole time a balance was quietly growing in a place he was not looking. By the time Warren actually opened the statement and read the bottom line, he owed about $3,500, and he genuinely could not tell you when that had happened. That is the trap working exactly as designed. Not one dramatic mistake, just 100 painless taps. So let us walk through the exact traps your brain falls into on the way to a number like Warren's, and then, one by one, how to outsmart every single one of them. The first trap is printed right there on the statement, and it might be the two most expensive words in personal finance. Minimum payment due. That little number feels like a helpful suggestion from the bank, a friendly floor. It is not a suggestion. It is a psychological anchor, and it is quietly engineered to keep you in debt for as long as humanly possible. A researcher named Neil Stewart studied this directly, and what he found should genuinely make you angry. Simply showing people a minimum payment amount drags their actual payment down toward it. When people were shown a small minimum, they paid less. When the minimum was hidden from them entirely, those same people paid dramatically more, often clearing close to half the balance in one shot. The minimum number works like gravity. Your eye lands on it, your brain grabs it as the reference point, and whatever you were planning to pay quietly drifts down toward that floor. Later research found the same thing over and over, with payments bunching up right at or just above whatever minimum the bank chose to print. Let me put real numbers on what that anchor costs you using Warren's balance. He owed about $3,500, which is an ordinary, unremarkable amount, at around 22%. Suppose he does what most people do and pays only the minimum each month. That minimum starts near $35 and shrinks a little as the balance shrinks. Watch what that does. Paying only the minimum, Warren's $3,500 balance takes close to 14 years to clear. 14 years for one ordinary balance. And across those years, he hands the bank just over $5,000 in interest on top of the original $3,500 he borrowed. He borrowed $3,500 and he pays back more than $8,500. The debt more than doubles, and it shadows him for well over a decade, all because his eye kept landing on that friendly little number and his brain kept treating it as the answer. Now here is the exact same debt with one single change. Instead of the minimum, Warren picks a fixed amount and refuses to move it no matter what the statement says. Say $250 a month. That identical $3,500 balance is now gone in about a year and a half, and the interest collapses from over $5,000 down to around $600. It is the very same debt on the very same card at the very same rate, and the only thing that changed was that he stopped letting a number on a page decide for him. We will come back to precisely how to do this in a minute, but hold on to that gap, because it is one of the largest returns available to a normal person anywhere in money. The second trap is friction, or more accurately, the deliberate removal of it. Every single year, the distance between wanting something and buying it gets shorter. It used to take a trip to a store and physical cash in your pocket. Then it took a card and a signature. Then just a card and a quick tap. Now it takes a saved card number and a thumbprint, or genuinely nothing at all, because the number is already stored and the item is shipping before you have even finished feeling the impulse. Every one of those steps that got quietly removed was a tiny window where your brain might have woken up and asked, wait, do I actually want this? Behavioral researchers will tell you that each confirmation step a company strips away makes overspending easier, because each of those steps was a chance for the pain signal to fire before you committed. Frictionless is a beautiful word in a product meeting. For your bank account, that friction was often the only thing standing between you and a purchase you would regret. The third trap is the newest one, and it is the coupling problem wearing a friendly new outfit. Buy now, pay later. Those little installment plans that appear at checkout offering to split your purchase into 4 easy payments. On the surface, they look harmless, even responsible, because they are often genuinely interest-free. But look at what they do to your brain. They take the pain of paying, which a credit card already delayed by weeks, and they push it out even further and then chop it into pieces so small that each one barely registers as spending at all. A $60 sweater becomes 4 payments of $15 spread across 6 weeks, and $15 4 separate times feels like almost nothing. That is not an accident. That is the entire product. And people are not saving these tools for the rare big purchase the way the commercials imply. More than 90 million Americans used Buy Now Pay later in the last year alone. A fast-growing share are reaching for it to buy groceries. Nearly half of all users admit they have paid one of these loans late in the past year, and many are now stacking several plans at the same time. One for the shoes, one for the electronics, one for the food, each one living on a different app, none of them talking to each other. So no single screen anywhere ever shows that person what they actually owe. It is debt that hides from you by design. Someone can feel completely broke and completely on top of things at the very same time, because the damage is scattered across 5 apps instead of sitting on one honest statement. The fourth trap is quieter, and it lives entirely in how your brain files money. It is called mental accounting. Your credit limit does not belong to you. You did not earn it, and you do not own it. And yet your brain insists on filing that available limit in the same mental drawer as your paycheck. So a card with a $10,000 limit quietly feels like a $10,000 cushion you are allowed to lean on. The available credit reads to your gut like a balance you have when it is actually a balance you can owe. That single confusion is how people who would never take out a loan for a weekend trip will happily put the whole thing on a card. Because the card never feels like borrowing. It feels like spending money that was already sort of yours. The fifth trap is the one that dresses up as being smart with money, and it might be the most insulting of all. Rewards, the points, the miles, the cashback. There is a woman I will call Colleen who was proud of the 2% cashback she chased on every purchase. And she was so focused on earning that small reward that she spent noticeably more than she otherwise would have, month after month. The bank was thrilled to pay her a tiny reward for the privilege of charging her a very large interest bill on the balance she carried. Rewards are not free gifts from a generous company. They are a nudge, carefully tuned to get you tapping more often and spending more per tap, and for anyone carrying a balance, the interest swallows the reward many times over. You cannot cash back your way out of 22%. If you are getting value from this, subscribe and stick around, because I break down exactly this kind of money psychology every week. The quiet mechanics that decide whether you slowly build wealth or slowly leak it without ever noticing. Now let us get to the part that actually changes your life, because naming the traps is only half the work. Outsmarting them is the other half, and it is far more doable than the industry would ever want you to believe. The first fix is the most powerful of all, and it is simply this: put the pain back. Recouple the cost with the purchase so your brain can feel it again in the exact moment that matters. The cleanest way to do that is to spend money you can actually feel leaving your hand. For a lot of people, that means running daily, spending through a debit card, or for the specific categories where they tend to lose all control, going back to actual cash. There is a man I will call Andre who could never figure out where his money vanished every month. He moved his eating out and his shopping over to cash for 60 days. Not forever, just long enough to wake the signal back up. His spending in those two categories dropped by roughly a third, and the strange part is he never felt deprived. He simply started feeling the purchases again, and a surprising number of them quietly stopped seeming worth it the second he could feel the money go. If moving to cash sounds too extreme for you, there is a lighter version that works almost as well. Before any purchase over an amount that you set yourself, you wait a full 24 hours. That is the entire rule. You put the item in the cart, and then you close the app and walk away. What you are really doing is manually rebuilding the friction that technology stripped out. You are giving the slow, protective part of your brain enough time to finally catch up with the fast, excited part that wanted to tap. Most impulse purchases simply die quietly in that 24 hours, and you never miss them, because the craving was never really about the item. It was about the feeling of the tap itself. The second fix goes straight at the minimum payment anchor, and it is the highest return move in this entire video. Never ever let the minimum decide your payment. Pick your own number, a fixed amount that stays exactly the same no matter what the statement suggests this month, and set it up to pay automatically so that friendly little anchor never even gets the chance to pull you down. Think back to Warren. The difference between paying his minimum and paying a firm $250 a month was more than $4,000 in interest and well over a decade of his life. That is not a small budgeting tweak. That is a used car or a serious head start on an emergency fund bought right back with a single decision that takes about 10 minutes to set up one time. And if you are staring at more than one card, point that fixed amount at the card with the ugliest interest rate first while you keep the minimums current on the rest. The math and your future self will both thank you. The third fix is to add the friction back yourself, on purpose, since not a single company in this system will ever do it for you. Go into your browsers and your shopping apps and rip out the card numbers that sit there saved and ready and warm. Make yourself get up, physically find the card, and type the whole thing in every single time. That small annoyance is not a bug in your day. It is your brand new break. And if by now, pay later is where you personally tend to slip, delete the apps completely. Because a tool built specifically to hide from you what you owe is not something most people can use in moderation. Remember the woman I called Tessa? She was juggling 4 of those installment plans and honestly believed she was doing fine. Right up until the afternoon, she wrote all 4 of them down onto a single sheet of paper and saw the real total for the very first time. Nothing about her actual debt changed in that moment. Only her ability to finally see it did. And that plain visibility is the entire thing that made her deal with it. The fourth fix is about making the future feel real, because the root of your whole problem is that your brain treats that future bill as pure fiction. So stop allowing it to be fiction. Before any purchase you are the least bit unsure about, do not ask whether you can afford the price on the tag. Ask instead what this thing actually costs you if it ends up writing on the card. That $80 impulse buy, carried at the minimum on a balance you are already revolving, does not really cost $80. By the time it finally clears, it can quietly cost you $100 or more. When you translate a purchase from its cheerful little today price into its true delayed price, you are doing by hand the exact thing your brain flatly refuses to do on its own. You are forcing the cost and the reward back into the same moment. You are dragging the pain into the room while you still have every ounce of power to walk away from it. And notice the single thread running through every one of these fixes. Not one of them asks you for more willpower or more discipline in the heat of the moment. Because willpower in the moment is precisely the thing all of these systems are engineered to defeat. Every fix instead changes the setup before the moment ever arrives. You are not trying to be stronger than your own brain in the checkout line. You are quietly arranging your whole world so that your brain feels the truth on its own, the way it naturally would if everything around you were not so carefully built to numb it. That is the real secret hiding under all of this. You do not outmuscle the trap while you are excited. You calmly dismantle the trap while you are clear-headed so that you never have to fight it at all. Because here is what almost nobody says out loud about debt. The interest rate is not really the enemy you think it is. 22% is brutal, yes, but that rate only ever gets a grip on you because of the feeling sitting underneath it, the deep and constant feeling that borrowed money is basically free. Fix that feeling, put the pain back where nature meant for it to sit, and the rate never gets its hooks into you, because a balance never sits there long enough for the rate to matter. The people who stay out of debt are not secretly blessed with more self-control than you. They are simply the people who arrange their money so the cost is always visible and always felt in the moment it happens. None of this fully works, though, if the whole thing still feels like a bag of clever tricks instead of something you truly understand from the ground up. And that is the real gap for most people. Not a lack of effort and not a lack of character, but a lack of the basic money education that somehow never made it into a single classroom any of us ever sat in. How interest actually compounds against you. How those small innocent percentages quietly become the enormous numbers. Why this entire system is shaped the exact way it is, and whose pocket it was shaped to fill. If this video pulled back the curtain for you, the natural next thing to understand is the whole set of money lessons school never taught you. Because once you can see the entire machine clearly and completely, not one of these traps can ever sneak up on you again. Before you go, I genuinely want to hear from you, because the best part of this whole conversation is not going to come from me. When did you first realize that a card, or one of those payment plans, had quietly cost you far more than you thought it had? What was the moment that woke you up? Maybe you are standing right in the middle of it this very month, or maybe you already climbed all the way out and you still remember the exact day the number stopped being invisible. Leave your story down in the comments. Tell me which one of these fixes you are going to try first. And if there is something money related you learned the hard way that might help a total stranger reading this, please leave that there too. Someone scrolling through this conversation tonight needs to read your story more than they need to hear another statistic from me. So talk to each other. I read every one.